Hi, it's Mo, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're discussing one of my favorite movies, Disney's Ice Princess. This movie taught me all the life lessons I need to know. Seriously. Starring Michelle Trachtenberg as Casey alongside Kim Cattrall, Joan Cusak, and Hayden Panettiere, this movie is seriously underrated. You can watch it on the almighty Disney Plus, and today we're going to dive in a little deeper. Major Ice Princess spoilers ahead, obviously. Ice Princess follows Casey, a physics whiz who also loves figure skating. When a teacher introduces her to a college scholarship that needs a personal physics project, she decides to incorporate skating. She soon discovers a passion for skating, much to the chagrin of her single, straw feminist mother. She meets skating coach Tina Harwood, loosely modeled off Tonya Harding, who lives by a hardcore skating philosophy that involves doing whatever it takes to win. While performing in a children's recital, Casey discovers that not only does she really like figure skating, she's also really good at it. With the help of her physics project, she eventually raises enough money to be able to train with the other junior level skaters, including Tina's daughter, Jen, which is spelled with a G, by the way. Tina wants her daughter Jen to win and sabotages Casey's chances in a competition to do so. While she's not really that important to the plot other than enlightening Casey at the attempted sabotage, it's important to me that you know that there's a bad girl of figure skating named Zoe Block who dances to Britney Spears' Toxic. I am enamored with her. Meanwhile, Tina, having noticed that Casey's actually doing really well in this competition, hatches a plan to keep Casey from knocking Jen out of 4th place and going to sectionals herself. She purchases Casey a pair of new skates, knowing that Casey doesn't have the skating know-how to know that she needs to break them in for 10 days, and so Casey falls and hurts herself during a competition. She initially feels incredibly betrayed by Tina and thinks that Jen and the hot son are also in on it. Tina has a hot son whose name is Zamboni Driver. I'm just kidding, it's Teddy. Jen quits figure skating because she never really liked it anyway and her mom was pushing her too hard, so that pushes Casey up to the 4th slot and is able to compete in sectionals. Casey bails on a Harvard interview, much to the chagrin of her aforementioned straw feminist mother, and decides to train by herself. It is here where we will hear uttered the line, "You're giving up your dream." "No, Mom, I'm giving up your dream." Legendary.
You can't do this, Case. You're giving up your dream.
No, Mom. I'm giving up your dream. I'm going after mine.
Anyway, in a wonderful turning point for Casey, hot Zamboni driver Teddy comes and steamrolls the lake for her, or whatever you call it, to make sure that the ice is smooth enough for her to train by herself. It always seemed weird to me that the ice in this dinky little pond was thick enough that the thousands of pound Zamboni wouldn't fall through. I mean, technically, according to science, only the top layer of the lake freezes. So what's up with that? Anyway, Casey, in a moment of pure guts, teams up with Tina to try to win sectionals because they're both the best chance that each other has. Now Casey has to prove to the world and to her mother that skating is more than just a fleeting fancy. She competes in sectionals as the definite underdog, and what happens will blow your mind. I'm just kidding, she wins 2nd place. I already told you there was going to be spoilers. Her mom learns to respect her dream, Tina learns to respect her skater, and we all learned that ice skating is amazing. In fact, the movie actually inspired Zara Lari of the United Arab Emirates to start her skating career. So don't tell me that this movie isn't inspirational AF. This movie is one of my favorites, and even though it's not an Oscar-winning masterpiece, it taught me everything about life that I need to know, and I'm going to share that with you. Lesson number 1, and arguably the most important, is to always get up when you fall. If you'll notice in this movie, the skaters don't stay down long for when they fall. You can't lie down in the middle of a skating competition and be sad that you fell and you hurt yourself. You have to get up, do the best that you can, and continue on. And I think that's a lesson that we all can afford to learn. From the infamous Super Chick song that is also featured in this movie, "If I get up, I might fall back down again. So let's get up, come on." Another thing that this movie taught me is that you can do anything you want as long as you say physics afterwards in a confident tone.
Physics! Physics.
Thanks.
Many of you might have noticed me calling Casey's mother, played magnificently by Joan Cusak, a straw feminist. It's time that we all discuss what a straw feminist is. This is an incredibly nuanced topic, but I'll do my best to sum it up in this short video. Straw feminist is the introduction of an identified feminist character to deliberately misrepresent and oversimplify modern feminism. It tends to perpetuate and advance the myth that feminism is no longer needed. Writers often do this by creating an exaggerated feminist character who spouts an oversimplified and extreme version of feminism. They tend to write a world that has evolved past gender inequality and no longer needs feminism. Feminist characters are thus seen as beating at a dead horse, or worse, advancing women by diminishing men. In this way, they attempt to discredit or devalue feminism by portraying it as extremist. Casey's mother spouts textbook second-wave feminist jargon, and for most of the movie, she's seen as the main hindrance to Casey's dream of becoming a professional ice skater. She's portrayed as annoying, tiresome, shrill. Her character literally teaches a feminist-focused literature class at the college and literally says things like, "That sets us back 50 years.
I know it takes incredible training and effort, and there's all this artistry involved, but I'm sorry. I just can't get past the tweaky little outfits.
They're actually very aerodynamically sound.
Sets us back 50 years. If I ever saw you squeeze into one of those things, I'd probably start crying.
Believe me, you never will.
Her concerns, like the outfits that skaters wear, are often trivial at best and the kind of thing that much of modern feminism has moved past. That is not to say that her concern about the over-sexualization of women is not valid. In fact, it's an important issue that has a lot more nuance than her character ever acknowledges. However, her character says things like this as an affront to Casey's dream of skating and not as an actual concern. This movie literally conditions us to disagree with her by having Casey sigh and brush her mother off. Having a feminist mother is seen as a hindrance or a tiresome annoyance, instead of something that is probably incredibly empowering. In this world, feminism is an extreme rather than a rational reaction to actual experienced inequality and justice. Casey, by contrast to her mother, is more of an aspirational female character who never explicitly aligns herself with feminism. This is done to make her mother look even more extreme and to suggest that feminism isn't really needed because you can be a strong woman without ever needing to claim the label. When we see Casey bristle at her mother's feminist philosophies, we are taught ourselves to believe that feminism doesn't really belong in our world either. It's dismissive, reductive, and pretty much false. It trivializes the feminist movement and thus obscures real issues with which modern feminism is concerned. In short, Casey's mother is an exaggeration of a feminist written to make us devalue real-world feminism. Other examples of straw feminists include Kat from 10 Things I Hate About You, Femme Fatale in the Powerpuff Girls, and Enid Hoops in Legally Blonde. I'll link some great informational videos about this trope here and in the description. It's also important to note that this movie is a product of its time period, as something written in 2005, and also represents the culture's discomfort with feminism at this time. Now, however, feminism has become more of the mainstream, and we see less and less straw feminist characters on screen. This has come with the Disneyfication of feminism, with bite-sized feminist representation used to sate the appetite of viewers. This often turns into faux girl power movies that similarly ignore real-world issues and create shallow, two-dimensional representations of feminism. It's clear that even though we have done a lot better representing women on screen, we still have a long way to go. It's also important for me to note that this is not saying that Ice Princess is an inherently anti-feminist movie. I'd actually argue that it's very empowering, and I'll continue to do so until I die. It was written by Hadley Davis and Meg Cabot, who also wrote the Princess Diaries movies and books. Meg Cabot is one of my favorite writers and a self-proclaimed feminist. In the Princess Diaries books, Mia explicitly identifies as a feminist and grapples with real-world nuances of feminism. However, what I am saying is that this movie uses feminism more as the butt of the joke and relies on more old-fashioned ideas of what feminism is in order to represent the false, Disneyfied idea that we live in a perfect post-feminist world. And that therein is the problem. And thus, life lesson number 3 is how to identify a straw feminist and what to do when you see one represented in mainstream media. Our next life lesson is all that you have to do in order to look good is to shake out your hair.
Jen! I'm not dressed for a party. Shake it. Your hair. Now no one will notice. Work the hair.
For this movie, we also get to learn a whole good deal of bite-sized physics facts.
Casey, you're the physics whiz. What's that rule about what goes up?
Well, technically it's that every particle attracts.
Casey.
Must come down? They're actually very aerodynamically sound. An object is only as strong as its weakest point.
Our next life lesson is how to find and embrace your own style. You didn't think I'd make this video without doing a little fashion analysis, did you? Fashion is not the main focus of this movie, as fashion is not really a main focus for Casey. Casey dresses for utility. Lots of jeans, athletic wear, beanies. In the beginning, her clothes are mostly neutral with a few shades of blue or lilac thrown in. This definitely emphasizes Casey's to-do attitude, focusing mainly on utility rather than style. This also likely comes from her mother, who believes in acknowledging, not flaunting, femininity, and probably dressed a child Casey in similar neutral shades. She probably even avoided colors like pink or red because of their heavy feminine connotations. The cooler shades in Casey's wardrobe are likely a subtle coating of more masculine traits, as blue is, for some reason, seen as a more masculine color. Blue also represents the more logical left brain world of science and math that Casey so often excels in. Now, as an older teenager, Casey probably follows her mother's influence, not particularly flaunting or highlighting her body or her femininity. Casey is completely comfortable in this style, but it's not really her own. She borrows heavily from others, whether it's from her mom or later, Tina. This adoption of Tina's influence will cause a rift between her and her mother later. We can also tell that Casey is not fully comfortable in her own skin via her clothing. This is no more evident than the Harvard brunch and recital scene. Casey wears her borrowed from Tina skating costume beneath her bought by her mother brunch outfit. The flashy red skating costume only barely peeks out from underneath the brown and purple brunch outfit, but when it does, it clashes magnificently. Her mother bought her this outfit and explains her style philosophy at the same time.
I think the whole effect was very grown up with a nod to femininity. We've evolved past flaunting it, but we don't have to deny it.
Her mother, ever the second wave feminist, tends to focus on function rather than form, with that nod toward femininity. She definitely is not cool with the objectification of women, something that, I should clarify, is definitely not cool. But she also tends to not believe in women expressing their style and sexuality in any way that might follow the standards of the patriarchy. Meanwhile, the red skating costume indicates the new life to which Casey is adjusting. The dress is not her own. It's one of Tina's old skating costumes, and although it fits Casey perfectly, it is not really her either. This costume will come to represent Casey's devotion and passion, hence the red, while also representing her transforming ideals. Casey slowly starts wearing new clothing with some brighter colors and more form-fitting silhouettes. We can take this as both her taking on Tina's influence, but also her steadily growing more and more comfortable in her own skin. Her mother starts to notice this change, commenting that Casey is trying to become like Tina. But really, what is happening is that Casey is learning that she can express herself through her clothing without it being a problem. She loves a little bit of glamour and beauty, but she also doesn't feel as if it must be her whole identity.
One little question. What? Haven't you ever heard of eyeliner?
It's also fun to note that Jen is the one who teaches her about makeup during her first real competition, and is the one who probably had a big influence on Casey's style, probably more so than Tina. We see Casey gradually begin to wear a lot more purple, which represents the melding of her past and aspirational lives. I'd also hazard a guess that based on how many times she wears purple in this movie, that it is her favorite color. This is also where Casey starts to move out of her ugly duckling phase and realize that not only is she attractive, but it's okay to take pleasure in beauty and style. A lot of this is also thanks to Jen.
You're hot. Stay away from Brian, he's mine.
Casey still wears a lot of menswear-inspired silhouettes with blazers and jeans and loafers, but she's adding feminine pops of color and style with scarves, jewelry, and shirts. It's worth noting that she conforms most to her mother's idea of style when she's supposed to be presenting herself in academic settings, like her Harvard interview.
Mom, I'm not gonna turn into her.
She's already rubbed off on you.
That's not true.
Where did this hair come from? And that makeup and that shirt. I did not buy you that shirt.
Casey's mother hates it when Casey's style begins to change, in part because it represents her fear of the prom queen and how the rest of us will always hate the prom queen. In a way, Casey's mother's ideas of femininity and style are still centered around very sexist ideals in that women must always be competing against each other. It'll always be the losers against the prom queen. This sexist idea assumes that these two things can't coexist, that you can't be both intellectual and beautiful, which is in itself a fallacy. Toward the end, we can see how much Casey's style has changed through her costumes worn to compete at sectional. The first outfit she wears is Tina's red dress, which we have seen her wear and slowly become more confident. You might also notice that the purple warm-up jacket Casey wears in the beginning mirrors the ones that she's worn throughout this movie. Her final outfit is a beautiful blue costume that looks gorgeous on her. The blue represents some of her past, with the cooler shades representing the old way she used to dress and the left side of the brain, whereas the general flashiness of the costume represents her new life. It's a great combo that shows off her personality perfectly. She's comfortable in both worlds, and she doesn't have to avoid one to be involved in the other. You can, and should, find and embrace your own style. A fun thing that this movie taught me is that you can make toast on a Bunsen burner. Just look at Mr. Bast go. An icon. One of my favorite life lessons I learned from this movie is how to work for your dreams and how to have guts while doing it.
You have to want it. You have to want it more than anything else. It's not something you do on a whim.
Tina's mantra of wanting it more than anything else carried me through hours and hours of ballet classes as a teen because it helped me to understand the beauty of sacrifice. In order to be an artist, an athlete, a competitor, you will often have to sacrifice other things you want. You also have to be strong and you have to have guts. Casey proved that she had guts when she asked Tina to be her coach, even though she had previously sabotaged her. She worked hard when she used her physics program to pay her way onto the ice. She worked hard on incorporating her physics project into herself and others skating, and she had guts going into the competition as an underdog. She had the guts to work hard and show up every day for training, working a job on top of skating, ballet classes, weight training, and school. She was willing to work hard even when the possibility of reward seemed unlikely. Even more importantly than having guts, this movie taught me how to compete with integrity. Say what you will about Casey's mother, she taught us not to lie or to cheat or to sneak around in order to win. Casey competed with integrity. Tina is an example of that lesson when we hear how she lost out on her own skating career after colliding with another skater. Casey's journey tells us that you don't have to cheat in order to be talented. You can win with integrity. And possibly, most importantly of all, this movie taught me to always break in your shoes. Whether they be skating boots, point shoes, or high heels, you will have a much better time if you break in your damn shoes.
Are you happy about my feet?
What?